We are just a couple hours away from the 2025 US Open men's semifinal action, and Novak Djokovic is up against these toddlers in the Final Four. Credit to Functional Tennis Instagram account for this excellent little picture they've put together here. Yes, those are your semifinalists. Not too long ago, it was only a few years ago, that none of these toddlers were able to challenge Novak Djokovic. Really, no one was left who could challenge him. And he said this.
So, I know that they want to get a scalp, they want to win, but it ain't happening still.
It ain't happening. Well, it is happening now, but really only with a couple of guys, and that's how this is possible. Novak Djokovic, 2025. It is the 7th time in his career he has made the semifinals. It sounds German almost. The semifinals at all of the 4 major tournaments in the calendar year. 2011, he wins. Aussie Open, Wimbledon, US Open, semis, and Roland Garros. Probably lost to Rafa. No, he lost to Roger that year. Great match. 2012, only wins 1. Finals at the Roland Garros, win at the Aussie Open, semis at the Wimbledon, and finals. I think Andy Murray took him out in 2012, Wimbledon semifinal, and finals at the US Open. 2013, wins the Aussie Open, semis at the Roland Garros, finals at Wimbledon, finals at US Open, loses to Andy Murray for sure, and that Wimbledon loses to Rafa at the US Open. 2015 Australian Open winner, another three here. Winner at the Australian, Wimbledon, US Open, loses in the Roland Garros 2015. I think that would be Stan the Man. 2021 win, and final in the US Open, loses to Danny Medvedev. 2023 winner at the Aussie, winner at the Roland Garros, loses to Carlos in the Wimbledon final, winner of the US Open, and here we are in 2025. So it ain't happening except for 2 guys. And honestly, for me, the tournament really is just starting, because I had no questions other than who's going to win in the final, Sinner or Alcaraz, and who can stop that final from happening and possibly win it, who isn't Sinner or Alcaraz. And I only think Djokovic. Going into this tournament, that's really all I thought. This Final Four is the one I had, other than Felix Auger-Aliassime. There can always be some surprises, but the surprisers don't win the tournament. Somebody else besides Djokovic who could challenge this big 2? Maybe Zverev was a person I would have given a small chance, And he obviously was out pretty early. So let's go to Novak Djokovic answering, the question, can he actually do it? And what does it come down to?
I remember you said at Wimbledon that you felt that you approached a semi-final with Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz with the tank half empty. Do you feel different here in New York?
Let's see in 2 days' time. Good thing about the schedule is now that I have 2 days without a match, so that helps a lot. So I don't feel very fresh at the moment, but hopefully in 2 days it will be different. The next couple of days is really key for me to really get my body in shape and ready to battle 5 sets if it's needed. So I just would really love that. Would love to be fit enough to play potentially 5 sets with Carlos. And I know that my best tennis is going to be required, but I rise to the occasion. Normally I like to play the big matches on a big stage. It's just that I'm not really sure how the body is going to feel in the next few days. But I'm going to do my very best with my team to be fit for that.
So where is he today? That is the question. We know where he was after he beat Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinals at the Australian Open to start this year off. He made the semis but couldn't play very long. I think he retired early in the second set against Zverev, and the body just, after everything he went through beating Alcaraz and who knows what else throughout the tournament had been bothering him, didn't have a healthy enough body to get through that match. Runs into red hot Sinner in the French Open semifinal. and plays a pretty good match, but, says that he feels like by the time he got there, the tank was not full. On clay at the French Open, that is very possible, especially, getting close to 40 years old. And, of course, Wimbledon, we all remember well, was his best chance this year, many had said. But, of course, he slipped and fell, got hurt right in the quarterfinals, winning against Coboli, and then lost the center pretty easily. But obviously, not only was the tank half empty, the body was injured. So that was even worse. Throughout this tournament, we've seen Djokovic grabbing at his neck, his back, his... That's the beginnings of the lyrics from a popular song from 15 years ago. Anyways, his neck, his back, this and that, all that stuff has been bothering him. But he seems pretty good to me in the last couple of matches. When they ask him how he feels, he says not great. But as he said before, how is he going to feel in a couple days? That is today. Now it is a couple hours until we find out. Very excited about that. Sticking with Djokovic here, every time the guy plays a match, he pretty much, I would say, breaks a record, but there's not many records left for him to break. He usually just sets new ones. And here's a new record. Most Grand Slam singles semifinals for man or woman. Federer in that 3 spot. Joker number 1. We don't even see Rafa on this list. Mostly women on this list, and Joker and Roger. Most singles semifinals at the US Open. He's tied. He has tied the record with Jimmy Connors, Mr. US Open. And then you got to love this one. The 3 oldest players to reach the semifinals of all 4 Grand Slams in a single season, they're all Djokovic at 34, 36, and 38 years old. Maybe he'll do it again in 2 years' time when he is 40, to stick with that. Now let's look at Carlos Alcaraz, who is a generational talent that Joker is up against today. Well, he's on his way to getting a bunch of Grand Slam semifinals. Maybe he'll be on that list of mostly women and Roger and Novak that we saw earlier one day. But he's before turning 23, he's behind Rafa, and Rafa didn't make that list. So there is no guarantee that you make that list. In fact, none of these guys made that list, and Novak is not one of these guys who had a bunch of semifinals before turning 23. So it really doesn't mean everything. Then there is this. Conditions, weather conditions always can play a major role in matchups. And I would say it's not so bad. You look at the temperature, it's been very nice at the US Open. Earlier in the year, Djokovic lost in the Miami final to Minchik, who's been a major disappointment ever since. And they had a long rain delay, came back, humidity was insane. And Djokovic looked like the conditions beat him just as much as Minchik did. Anyways, these conditions are pretty nice, but let's look at the humidity. And really, what I've learned from playing tennis is the humidity, which 59% doesn't look too bad. It's not great, but it doesn't look too bad. It's not like playing here in Atlanta, Georgia, where the humidity can hit the 80s and 90s. Really what matters is the dew point. And 65, as you see there, is muggy. So it starts off slightly under muggy, and by 5 p.m., when the match really gets going, it becomes muggy. This is something that's just one more little thing that's going to wear on Djokovic and drain his energy. So take a look at this. Dew point, much more important than humidity when you look at the weather. Something I actually learned about this year. All the years I've been playing tennis, just looking at the humidity. This is really where it matters. 50 to 60 is comfortable. 60 to 65 is getting sticky. And 65 to 70 is unpleasant. And once you go 70 or more, you are in danger. Let's look at the AI summary of how the dew point works. Dew point is a direct measure. As the value climbs above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, people start to feel muggy and uncomfortable. You see very similar there. They give a little more explanation to the graphic we just looked at, though. 55 to 59 is comfortable. 60 to 64, slightly uncomfortable. Sweat won't evaporate as quickly during tennis. 65 to 69, moderately uncomfortable. Performance may suffer. Risk of dehydration rises. And then 70 and above becomes oppressive. They say that during matches or practice, a high dew point means sweat lingers, increasingly straining on the body. Your body can't cool itself as efficiently. Makes play uncomfortable, potentially hazardous. That dew point, I believe, starts at 63 or 64 at the start of the match. Noticeable. becomes muggy and pretty much stays at 65, might hit 66 or 67 by the time we hit like 8 o'clock, which this match could go to 8 o'clock. It would not surprise me at all. So I think Djokovic, very important, always going to be important for him to win that first set, even more so because it's only going to get more physically challenging for the Joker. I don't think this is a huge factor, but it is definitely a small factor, so look out for that. If he doesn't grab, a lead in the first hour and a half of the match before we hit 5 o'clock when things get more oppressive, uncomfortable, and performance suffering, risk, whatever. And then there is this, which to me is actually kind of a big deal. Alcaraz had said, I really want revenge against Novak Djokovic. And some people might see this as like, oh yeah, Alcaraz, he's fired up. He's ready to go get some revenge. And I don't see it that way. I see this as a sign that Djokovic is in his head. It goes back to the beginning of the show. Since Djokovic said it ain't happening when he was asked, well, what about these young players who are trying to take the throne from you and just can't do it? You're older than everyone and no one can beat you. And he said, well, it ain't happening. They ain't coming for the throne and taking it. Not yet. Well, what happened right after he said that? Alcaraz beat him and he looked choky in the big moments in that Wimbledon match, right? There was a tiebreaker, I think, where he missed a couple backhands that are just like the kind of backhands Djokovic never missed his whole career, basically, especially in big moments at Wimbledon in a final. And, after that, he didn't win another Wimbledon. He didn't win any majors other than, that year he won the US Open. But he hasn't won majors since then. And, sometimes you say something like that, and I wonder, in that Wimbledon final, he said, it ain't happening, and then he finds himself in a position where he thinks, shit, it might happen right now. I might lose to Alcaraz. Why did I say that? I look like an idiot now. And I could totally see that happening in this match. If Joker wins the first set, maybe he loses the second set, but in that crucial third set or a fourth set, the pressure is on. Joker is hanging in there. He's not missing. He's making the shots. He's serving very well, which he has done all tournament long. Then all of a sudden, maybe Alcaraz's new and improved serve he's been working on this year, maybe it falls apart a little bit like we saw in the Wimbledon final against Sinner. And then all of a sudden, maybe he starts thinking about how he said in the press conference that he wants to get revenge, and it ain't happening. To me, this is a sign that Joker's in his head, and this could backfire on Carlos Alcaraz. And then finally, how about this guy? No one gave him, this was a comment, I was watching Felix Auger's press conference. Good for Felix. He's passed the Uncle Tony curse on to Sasha Zverev. Sasha Zverev now is cursed by Uncle Tony and will not get close, even anywhere near close to winning a major now. And Felix is free. Felix is free, and we see the result here. And here's this comment I liked. Fan of Mini 71 said, no one gave Amanda a chance against Iga based on her 6-0, 6-0 loss at Wimbledon, and she defeated Iga. She defeated Naomi as well. Everyone has a chance, even if chances might be very low. And that is true. But this is a hard court, and it's Jannik Sinner. And let me show you what Sinner does so well. I think this is just for the whole tour on all surfaces, actually. Sinner is now in a very rare position. He's not only the best returner on tour by quite a bit, he's also the best in the serving stats, just a tiny bit ahead. Just a tiny bit ahead of Impesi Pericard and a little bit more ahead of Fritzy and Sasha Zverev. I don't think that Felix is going to have much chance to even get a set against Sinner unless Sinner comes down with the flu again. However, if anyone is going to beat Sinner on the finals at Sunday, it's going to be the guy who wins this match today, Carlos or Novak. Welcome to the Coffee Break Tennis Podcast. Did I forget to make the Novak prediction? I could see Novak winning this thing in 4 or 5 for sure. Let's go Novak in 5, absolute battle, and then he doesn't have enough left for Sinner in the final. We'll update that prediction for the final after the semifinals are done and we get one last video in before the final. But that's kind of how I see it playing out right now. I think Joker finds a way to keep it alive because he's playing well, he's healthy enough, and I think, Alcaraz is better on the Erda, on Le Terre Battue. What did the Spanish call it? Oh, I can't remember, but they basically all call it like the terrain, the earth, something like that. Grass, clay, on these hard courts, even though Alcaraz is awesome, for whatever reason, maybe it's the movement, maybe it's the fact that it's really hard to match his comfort on grass or clay, the way he can move so comfortably there. But on a hard court, it's kind of equalized, right? If Alcaraz is a better mover than you on clay or a grass court, that gap is not as bad on the hard court, even though Alcaraz is one of the fastest, best movers around. Joker has been one of those his whole career too. So I think that's part of the reason why Alcaraz is not done as well. We saw Iga Swiatek wins Wimbledon and then gets blown out here, on a hard court. So there's also that, the ball coming through the court faster. And we know that the best hard court player in the world is Jannik Sinner right now, but it has been Djokovic for like freaking 15 years. So I think that still is enough, even though it's better here for Carlos than it is at the Aussie Open. So again, Carlos is going to have a great chance to be able to win this match for sure. Like, he can do it. But I'm going to go with Joker. Let's say Joker in 4. Let's say Sinner in 3. In fact, the only threat I really see to Sinner throughout the tournament, the only time I've really felt any danger from him was this moment. And then this is even funnier to me. Look, they asked Sinner, like, hey, Sinner, someone tried to rob you. How do you feel? And this is why I really can't stand Iga Swiatek complaining all the time. Did you see that she snapped in her press conference after losing to Anisimova? Someone asked her if she needed like a mental health break, which she's talked about in the past. She kind of set herself up for those kind of questions. And she said, "What about you? You look like you need a mental health break." And she snapped at the guy, and he's like, "Well, I gotta work." She's like, "Why don't you take a break?" And he's like, "Well, I gotta make it to the end of the tournament." And she's like, "Oh, the end of the tournament." I'm not going to make the end of the tournament. How nice of you to point that out. Well, good luck to you, right? She was really furious. Sinner is the total opposite, excuse me. They asked Sinner, what do you think about these super long Masters, which every player hates? And Sinner's like, well, I prefer, he sounds like the Godfather kind of, I prefer the shorter Masters 1000s, but I like these ones too, and it's good for the fans, which is good for me. That's his attitude. And more of that here.
I saw a video where you were giving a towel to a fan and another fan tried to open your bag. I'm just curious, like, as someone who's trying to be generous with their time, is that ever frustrating when people take advantage of that? And have you ever experienced something like that before?
No, I haven't experienced, it was... I check straight away if he took something because, I don't have only rackets there. I have... my phone, I have my wallet, I don't know. So, but, I feel like the security is doing a great job. I have, especially on court, there are lots of security and I believe this, especially the big tournaments, to make amazing job to feel us safe, so even new things happen like this, they make great jobs. So, no, it's all fine.
Yeah, I feel like the security's a great job. Really? Is that a great job? That guy got in his bag with the security guy right there. I mean, what if he had a knife? What if he had a laser? Jeez Louise. But, Sinner, that's how he's going to handle every single question. Aliassime was asked about Sinner. Sinner was asked about Aliassime, and he said, like, oh, it's going to be a very tough match, just like with Musetti. It's going to be a very tough match. I got a text from a friend of mine right before the match started, and he said, Musetti is about to get destroyed. And normally, I'm the guy that writes back, well, Musetti's got this going for him, and, maybe Sinner's feeling the effects of the flu or whatever. I'll point out the reasons why a match could be interesting. Very commonly, people say, I hear it all the time. Someone will say to me like, oh, that match, it's going to be, this person's going to kick that person's butt, whatever. And I'll say, well, there's this factor that makes the match more intriguing. I think I'm constantly trying to sell people on watching the matches. Well, on this one, I just wrote back like, yeah, Musetti is about to get destroyed. Anyways, they asked Felix, and he actually gave a more honest answer, right? Sinner knows the truth is that Felix has no chance. Felix gave a better answer.
Obviously, the perfect scenario would have been to win against him in Cincinnati. And I think like the let's say, the medium scenario. The okay scenario is having a chance to actually play him. We hadn't played in some years, so if I get to play him in the next round, it's like, okay, I know more what to expect of, like, okay, this is what he plays like today compared to 2022. And I was able to, feel his game. So now, I can really prepare and say, okay, this is what to expect, and I can go in, knowing that.
Just one follow-up. What is the biggest difference that you see from a couple of years ago until recently?
Physicality, movement, got much better, stronger physically. The serve, the forehand, more precise. The backhand was always consistent. The return was always good, deep, but yeah, those are like the main things.
And I love that he pointed out strength and physicality first in the things that he's noticed. He played him recently, hadn't played him since 2022. I got to see Sinner in the Rotterdam final in early 2023. And that was one of the things I noticed. I've been noticing it a lot. I had the word, I called Sinner a long time ago. I remember one time saying, like, maybe all this arguing about who's going to win the GOAT race is dumb because the golden child Sinner is right here under our noses and he's going to win 30 majors in the next 15 years. I was kind of joking around, but I did think Sinner is the kind of guy, he looks to me like Djokovic, but with more upside. Djokovic, but mentally tougher. Djokovic, but unflappable. Nothing can get to him. So yeah, sometimes that fires Djokovic up and helps him, but I also think it can be good to be like Sinner. Maybe it's even better. Like Roger looked like that, but we'd also seen Roger snap enough times to know that, like, and we knew the reputation he had as a child for, as a junior, for throwing his rackets, smashing rackets, and having a really bad temper. So you knew, like, it's boiling inside, and Roger's just getting really good at kind of hiding it. Sinner actually is like the Iceman. I don't think I've ever seen him really get super bothered. I think I saw him kind of punch his strings one time, and even then he did it at like 20% speed in the punch. But yeah, so long time ago I saw, like, man, this guy plays a lot like Djokovic, but he hits harder. He takes the ball earlier. He's mentally tougher, perhaps. Like, hard to say that now. We'll see how he does 10 years from now, but you could argue that maybe he will be mentally tougher in the long run overall. The serve is bigger. Like, he has all these things. Now, the one thing he didn't have, which Djokovic kind of had something like that too in the early days of his career, is you'd see him get worn out and fall apart. I saw him in that 2023 match. So the first thing Aliassime says against Medvedev, the 2023 match, he wins the first set, looks really good, like he's going to win the match, and then Medvedev just kind of wears him down. And in the end, the third set was like 6-1 to Medvedev maybe. I remember Sinner looked like he didn't have any legs left. And we saw that a lot. And that was the first thing Auger Aliassime says. What is the difference you notice in Sinner's game today versus a few years ago? Is he's stronger. He's just tougher. His body is going to last through more punishment on the tennis court. And then, also said the backhand's always very solid, but now, it's even better. And the serve and the forehand, they both got bigger, stronger, and more accurate. All this stuff is super scary. And it makes me feel like no matter how great Djokovic is today, if he can find a way to beat Alcaraz, which I certainly think he can, it might just be too much to ask now for him to take out Sinner, especially on the hard court where Sinner is now, the best mover. Here's another factor, and we noticed this in the Djokovic match. Just, we always talk about the French being rude. The Aussies can be boozed up at a Kyrgios match. You can have kind of a rougher crowd there. And, the French and the Italians in Rome, they can be very rude. But, man, against Taylor Fritz, the cheering every time Joker missed a first serve for a while there was pretty shocking. And I saw this article, and I had to put it in this show. Take a look at this. New York Post, rowdy, booze-fueled U.S. Open fans are nothing like spectators at other elite tournaments, and players, tennis buffs, have had enough. They've had enough. Take a look at these pictures. Here are some of these boozy loudmouths. The loudmouths, says the quote here, the pull quote, loudmouths who were gossiping about people and their jobs. Also, later in the article, it said they were more focused on taking selfies than watching the tennis. Distracted him from the match. This is a fan, a true tennis fan, between Auger Aliassime and the Demon. I'll read you a little bit. Boozed up fans at the US Open are much louder and rowdier during games than audiences at other elite tennis tournaments, irritating players and serious spectators. Raucous folks in the stands have been spotted noisily gabbing, snapping court-blocking selfies, rudely taking calls on speakerphones at high-stakes matches, even in moments where players could hear a pin drop. One fan, Rob Stein, 65 from Queens, said, "They're obnoxious. They're inconsiderate. They talk through the game. They put the feet up against the seat like it's empty." Stein said he was distracted by loud fans while watching the Canadian champ Felix Auger face off against Australian pro Alex Demon. "There's no respect for the game anymore. I can never imagine this happening at Wimbledon," said the fan. Another fan said, same fan said, "I believe drinking plays a role in the bad behavior." Yeah, it definitely does. That is my New York Queens voice, which that might not even be how they sound in Queens. I don't know. Djokovic was serving during the third set of the quarterfinals against Taylor Fritz when he faulted and he flipped out. He demanded that the chair umpire, Damien Dumisrois, order the fans to quiet down, and Damien said, "Novak, it's not going to help." On Wednesday, spectators also complained about loud talkers gabbing through matches etiquette that would be quickly shut down at traditional Grand Slams such as Wimbledon or the French, where alcohol in the stands is now banned. Wow, I can't believe they did that. See, I'd rather be able to have a honey deuce or a beer and deal with all that than have the no drinks in the stands. That's kind of, I don't really love that. Tony said, "It was loud. It was rude. Your conversation should be kept quiet during play, but at the break, you can elevate it." The loudmouths who were gossiping about people and their jobs distracted him and his wife, Maria. "I've been coming since I was a little girl. Back then it was quiet when they were playing, but now things have changed. There's just a lot of people taking pictures of themselves, and there's another set who are serious about watching the tennis." So anyways, there is that factor as well. I don't know. I don't think that really bothers Alcaraz too much, but maybe it could. Anyways, in the spirit of that, let's go to Djokovic talking about the moments when he had match points. And this did surprise me a little bit. He had match points returning against Taylor Fritzy boy, and he missed them. Got it on the third match point, I believe.
Disappointed really to
he doesn't even like talking about
both of those match points, because in both I was in the rally in both of them, and I thought that last game I read his first serve well. He missed more first serves than he has throughout the entire set, and so he gave me a chance to be in the rallies, but I was just pushing the ball. I wasn't doing much with the ball, and then it ended up with me being in a defensive position, and I missed 2 backhands, and that's what happened. But
kind of like in Wimbledon when he missed a couple backhands and lost it. I did notice that. I was kind of surprised. I thought he would lock in. That's a worrying sign. That makes me feel less confident in my pick for him to win against Alcaraz today. Fritz had to give him the double fault, really, to get the win because, as Joker said, he was kind of pushing the ball. He wasn't going out. He'd said earlier in the press conference that he just didn't feel the ball as well as he would like on this day. But again, he found a way to win. This has happened so many times to great players who go on to win championships. If anything, you can look at it a couple ways. You can say that's a bad sign. Can't do that against Alcaraz or Sinner. But you could also say, maybe he kind of got it out of his system and he's going to step up and play a truly great match. I think that's more likely to happen than not. But it was interesting to hear Djokovic saying on a match point, he is pushing the ball rather than going after it. I mean, that happens when you're not feeling it. The ball's going out on you. Sometimes you get a little more pushy and less hitty. Here he is talking about when he actually did win it, though.
But then I had a very good return and a couple of good points at the deuce, and then put myself in a position to have another match point. And then basically in the end, I was debating whether I should step in for the second serve or go back. And I went back, and I had pretty good success today against him when I went back, because I just wanted to give him a different look. Whether that provoked him to make a double fold or not, I don't know. But I think it did give him just a different positioning, different perspective on where I'm positioned on the court, which can mess up with your mind a little bit in these crucial moments. And that's how it ended up. Unfortunate for him.
And that will take us to the numbers. We will look at stats for the tournament, just like we did earlier in the year at the other majors. And we'll talk about what they could mean for these final 4 matchups and show some examples for what they did mean in earlier matches that have concluded already. But That is very true. You adjust something and the guy sees it. We don't know for sure, but I would say there's a chance that got a little bit in Fritzy's head. And good for Joker saying, he's gotten more used to, he used to just kind of stand on the baseline and take returns early all the time. But now he'll move back sometimes, and he notices that this has helped, get in people's head a little bit, which it absolutely can. I don't know how many times I've seen someone get really close to the service line on my second serve, and I double faulted in the past. So many times I've been playing a doubles match about to return, and the guy at the net moves over to like the middle, or he does, the I formation, that kind of thing, or he gets on the opposite side where they're both on the same half of the court, and you just miss the return because you're like, what are they doing? Just enough to distract you and get you off your focus, off your game for a moment. So absolutely could be a factor. He's going to need every trick in the book. Sinner, gosh, he could do it to Alcaraz, but how's he going to do it to Sinner? That is my question. So let's look at the first serve numbers. Here are your first serve kings of the tournament thus far. You can see the matches there kind of in the middle. So Impesi Pericard won the highest, but he lost in the first round. He's got one match. Sinner's got 5 matches, so he is the king, but he's tied with Alcaraz. So they've both he's played a little bit less points than Alcaraz on serve. That's interesting because hasn't Alcaraz not dropped a set? So Sinner has played 1 set more than Alcaraz, I believe. Yet he has had to play. So he's been taking care of business pretty well on his serve, even though Alcaraz somehow has the exact same percentage, but an extra 16 points played, even though having 1 set less. So that's interesting. I guess more sets that go to 7-5, 6-4, 7-6, stuff like that. Anyways, you see Tsitsipas is high up on this list. Like, this is not enough to win it, obviously. A lot of guys are high up on this list who lost. So let's look at the guys who have 5 matches or 4 matches. Struff is winning 83% on first. Sinner winning 84%. Alcaraz winning 84%. Who else is on? Fritzy, 81%. Now look at Joker. He's on the list, but he's at 78%. So already you kind of, put him behind Sinner and Alcaraz on the first serve department, even though Djokovic has been serving outstanding. At times it's the rest of his game that was kind of failing him, not feeling too great in some of the early rounds. So you could also dismiss it because of that and say, like, well, he's dealing with like little physical issues that have been bothering him. Maybe he's feeling better now. Musetti just barely makes it to this list with 78%. We go to second serve. Best second serve players here. Fonseca, he was number 2 on the list. Jordan Thompson, but didn't help them that much as they lost in the second round. Alcaraz, 68. Now, this is pretty common. Even at Wimbledon, we looked at it, how Alcaraz was doing better on second serve numbers. Rafa always was the king on the second serve because he could back it up so well in the rally. Joker usually pretty good on this list too. So Joker's right there. He's right behind Musetti, 59-60. Where is Sinner? Sinner is on the bottom of this list for guys that are still in the tournament. Well, Demon was at 55. Sinner just 1% better, 56. Fritz was at 57. Joker's 59, Musetti 60, and Alcaraz 68. All right, so with that said, let's look at Musetti. Let's single out Musetti. He was doing really well here, 60% win on second, and 78. So 78% win for Musetti on first, 60 on second. What happened when he played Sinner? Those numbers got crunched, right? He was 78. He dropped down to 73. He was 60, I think, on the second serve, did I just say? Doesn't matter. Whatever it was, it dropped to 32%. That's what these awesome returners can do. What about Bublik? Let's look at Bublik. Bublik was winning 81% on first serve. He was winning. Hit the music because we're going to get out of here pretty soon. He was probably around 52 on second, but he didn't make that top list because the bottom of the list is 55. So let's say 81 and 52. His numbers dropped to 60, which is a huge move from the 80s to 60. And winning on second serve against Sinner, 19%. Oh, my God. That Wimbledon match, I said Joker serving well, and he still had a pretty decent first serve number against Sinner, but the second serve number was destroyed, especially because winning on second serve, one, you got to have a really good second serve if you want to win a lot on second serve, or you can have both of these things. you got to move really well and back it up. If you can hit a good second serve and get a neutral-ish ball back, and you typically win rallies from the neutral point, you're going to do really well on your second serve. It explains why, Alcaraz and Rafa were always so good on second serve on all surfaces pretty much. Let's look at Riley Opelka. He always has good serve numbers. He played Alcaraz in the first round, so he didn't make that list. Win on first was 75. That's low for him. Win on second was 41. That's very low for him. That's what these guys do. Here's Fritz. Now, Fritz's first serve number, 82. How did he compare on the list? He's actually 81. Maybe his first serve number was higher before he faced Joker and brought it down slightly. But let's say he did a little better. And Fritz was 57 on the second serve. Well, Joker crunched that 57 down to 47. 10% is a huge drop. It can make a big difference in these close matches. And then the first serve, but that doesn't tell the whole story. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment. Let's look at what happened to Struff. Struff was serving great. His numbers got dragged down by Joker to 66 on first and 40% on second. And let's take a look at this quote. Jan-Lennard Struff said, "It felt like he dismantled me. I tried, I fought, but he didn't make any mistakes. Keine Fehler. He had an answer for everything. Hatte eine Antwort für alles, and I couldn't do anything about it. He gave me no free points," said the German Jan-Lennard Struff. And that's what Djokovic is so good at. That's why Alcaraz says he's out for revenge. But when you're getting no free points and the pressure is on, is that, comment going to do you any favors? Hopefully he doesn't remember it in the middle of the battle today. And finally, we're going to take a closer look at the stats here. Now, for the match, you can see 82. Fritz did a little better than his average on the first serve, but on the second serve, 47. That makes a big difference. Even though he's 10% above the first serve numbers for Joker, 47 being that far under and making a lot less in. 63 for Joker, 56% for Fritz, a lot less first serves in. That adds up, and that is a big problem. Also, you kind of need those numbers to be higher for Fritz because, Joker can have his numbers low, but he can also step up and win a break point, even if his numbers are not looking as good on serve as the opponent. So that's another wrinkle to throw in there. So let's break it down by set, though, because one thing he was doing is not hitting his spots so well. Even when the first serve went in, those first two sets, Fritz really did not serve the way he could, which is just part of the mental effect like Struff was talking about facing the Joker. So first serve numbers, he's crushing the Joker in first serve. First serve in, he's up by 7%, and first serve win, 89% for Fritz versus 73% for the Joker. That's bad, right? But Joker's got him in the second serve department all day in that first set. Only 9%. He only wins 1 point on second serve, Fritzy. While Joker's winning 56, which is a magic number. 55 and above on your second, you're looking really good. In the second set, Fritz is still winning a pretty good percentage on on the first serve, and his second serve numbers go up. He's still got better numbers than Joker, but that's just the Joker effect. You get down to the pressure moments. Joker had 5 break points. He saved 4, but he's able to break Fritz twice. Fritz only had 2 break points against him, but he doesn't save them. So even if your numbers are better than Joker on the serve, when it comes down to a clutch moment, Joker is usually going to handle it better than you or better than the other points he was losing to you to give you those numbers. Anyways, we go to set 3. Joker getting out served still, 90%. Second serve, very close here, right? Joker's second serve numbers go down. Fritz is able to win the set. And then finally, on the fourth and final set, Joker numbers step up in a big way, which is what you expect him to do when it comes down to, it's pressure time. This is the set he wants to get out. He does not want to go to a fifth set. Joker gets way more first serves in than Fritz, gets a higher 20% more win on first serve and slightly less win on second. But if you're winning 82% on first and you're winning 70 on second, you're going to be unbreakable. You didn't have to save 1 break point. And of course, there were the 3 break points we looked at earlier. Anyways, my predictions. Enjoy the matches. We will be back Saturday before the final. See you.